Hi, I'm Radek. I'm a developer advocate at QuickNode, and let's build something together today. Let's build a token balance app where you provide a wallet address and you get the list of all the tokens in that wallet. In addition to that, for each and every token, when you click on that, you will get the transaction history for that specific token, both incoming and outgoing transactions. To build that, we'll start from scratch and we'll use React, we'll use Tailwind CSS to make it look pretty, and we'll use QuickNode Token API to fetch token data. I'll even add a few interesting and unusual things to make it worth your while. Ready? Let's build. A quick note before starting building. This workshop was recorded a few weeks ago, and since then there has been a new and improved V2 version of API introduced. So what I'm using in the video is this main token API, but since then there's been a new addition in the marketplace as an add-on. Can browse and go, this is token NFT API V2 bundle, using also V2 functions, which the API is new and improved, being more accurate and faster. So I would encourage to use this one instead of the main API. And I have built and put a sample app online as a token balance app at showmethetokens.xyz. So this is what we are going to build in the next about 45 minutes. And let's quickly have a look how it's going to work. So you enter the wallet address. This is Vitalik's wallet. Show me the tokens. It shows the ETH balance, more than 5,000 ETH, not bad. These are all the tokens, and you click on the tokens and you get the transaction history for the tokens, which you can then also see on Etherscan. So this is what we are going to build, and also make sure that when you are using the version 2 that you in your endpoint go to add-ons and make sure that token and NFT API bundle is activated and enabled. You need this enabled in order to be able to use these functions, because that's an add-on and not one of the core APIs. Okay, and now let's go to building. Before we start, let's think what we need to have. We need to be able to connect to blockchain, and we need to be able to read from blockchain and get the token data for a specific address. We'll also need not just the current token balances for the wallet, but all the transaction history for that wallet for those tokens. And to achieve all that, we'll use QuickNode. QuickNode at its core is a blockchain infrastructure provider, and it provides RPC nodes to read and write and build on blockchain. But it's much more than that. It has helpful APIs where you can fetch data much faster, much more efficiently, and you don't need to do all the stuff manually. You get everything in one or a couple of requests. So let's take care about the infrastructure side of things that we will need in a few minutes. Go ahead and go to quicknode.com, create a free account, fill out this simple form, and you will be done in 2 minutes. Once you've created an account, go ahead and create an endpoint, the endpoint that will connect to blockchain and that will read all the data that we will need to display as part of our app. So we'll want to have the token balances for the mainnet. So what we have on the mainnet in our wallet, not any testnet. So we'll choose Ethereum as our blockchain, and mainnet. There are also testnets if you need, mainnet as our network. And now you create an endpoint. That's it. Now you have means to connect to blockchain, to read from blockchain, and if need be, to write to blockchain as well. All we need is this provider address. Let's copy that and let's keep it for a couple minutes from now when we will need to plug it into our app. Now let's briefly look at the token API before we start using it. So how do we get data about tokens? So this is the example of what we can get with token API. We can get the balances, we can get token names, we can get token transfers, all in simple API requests. Now that our infrastructure and data reading needs are satisfied, it's time to start building. Let's build an app from scratch. In a simple way, create React app, token browser. A few moments later, we have an empty app. Let's go to token browser and let's code. This is an empty React app for now, but we want to be able to connect to blockchain. For that, we need to install a library, Ethers. Once it's done, let's also install Tailwind CSS so that the app doesn't look ugly. Config file created. Let's have a look at it. Nothing much here for now. So let's first take care of where Tailwind CSS is going to work. The next thing, let's make it a little less ugly. I don't like all the default fonts, for example. So let's update the font to be something a little bit better. Let's make it Poppins, and that's a Google font. So let's make sure that it's being loaded into our app. To do that, first we need to load Tailwind CSS into our app. So we go to src folder, index.js, and we load it right here before the app. So now Tailwind CSS is loaded into the app. Now let's take care about importing the Poppins font. This we'll do in public index.html file in the header area. Let's add it at the end here. And while we're here, let's take care about one more thing. Let's try and launch the app, npm start. So this is the default React app, an empty one. While replacing this with content will be no problem in a minute or two, but too often I see apps with the default icon for the app in the browser, the default icon, and I want it to be more personal. I want it to be mine. I will replace that icon with my own. To do that, I usually use this favicon generator. Once you upload your image, this is what you end up with. It generates a whole load of files for you. Based on that image, I uploaded an image of a coin, and now I have an icon of a coin in different sizes. What I'm interested in is this file, and I'll drop it into my project so that I can see it already being more personal. So it will override the default file. Nice. And let's see, did it work? Token balance up, it already has my icon. Better. Now let's take care about that font. We have loaded that, but we haven't defined it yet. Index.js, font family, and let's replace all that with the one with Poppins at the beginning. Good. Time to start digging into the app code and into the app logic. It's going to be a simple app, so I will not split it into components. I will store everything in app.js. This is the default of React. We don't need that. Let's start with something simple. First, we import the useState React hook for React to be able to track the state variables that we want to be available to our app. Then we import the Ethers library to be able to read from blockchain, and utils from Ethers to be able to format data the way we want. And the state variables used with useState will be first the address. So this will be the wallet address that we enter into the app. We want to be able to set it and then to read it back. And once we have that, we also want to be able to set the tokens so that the balances of that app in a state variable so that we can then later on read and display that in our front end. Before we write HTML, I like to create the functions that we will be able to use in the HTML. So to first create the logic of the app and only then start writing the HTML to present the form, to present everything else. So the idea is that at the beginning, the app will be the input form where you enter the wallet address. So what happens when you click submit? When you click submit, I want the handle submit function to run. So what does it do? First, it prevents the default. So the default is to submit the form and reload the page. We do not want to reload the page. We want to do something without reloading the page, and then to get the data based on that something, and then to update parts of the page with that data. So that's why we need to prevent the default behavior of the browser. And once we do that, we first fetch the address from the form and set it as our state variable with setAddress. And then we'll run the fetch tokens function that is not written yet. So we will fetch that. And once we have the tokens, we will again use the set tokens to store it in the state variables here. So in this one function, we already taken care about both state variables, which we have defined at the beginning, tokens and the address. We're also catching an error. If there is some kind of error, then the tokens are set to empty so that we don't display some previous state that is no longer valid. We have the handle submit function ready now, but there is one thing missing here, the fetch tokens function. So let's write it here. So the fetch tokens function, let's hide it for now. What does it do? First thing that we do is that we check that the value provided in the form is a valid Ethereum address. And this is provided by ethers with the utils is address, and we are providing the value from the form. Once we are sure that we have a valid Ethereum address, we can go to step 2, which is to start reading from blockchain. But to read from blockchain, like I said at the beginning, we need to connect to the RPC node to be able to do that. To do that, we define a provider that we will connect to, ethers providers, JSON RPC provider, and we need the URL here of that provider. And that's exactly this thing here. That's what we needed. Okay. Now we have that. We are able to connect to blockchain. We have the provider of reading and writing to blockchain. We can do things with that provider now. So how do we get the tokens? How do we get the tokens that the current wallet has? We take the provider that we have got and we send the API request to it called QN get wallet token balance. And let's see what it does. Token. QN get wallet token balance for Ethereum. So what do we need to provide? The parameters. We need to provide the wallet and optional the contract's array of strings. So the wallet is quite obvious. First we are checking if the address is the wallet address. We made sure in our code that it is. So we are provided the valid wallet as the first parameter, and we have an optional second parameter with the list of ERC20 token contract addresses if we only want to check those specific tokens. If we want to check all of them, then we leave that second parameter empty. And let's see what happens first when we have the empty. So let's uncomment this and let's comment this one. So we're calling that method. We are calling get wallet token balance method. We are providing the address and we are providing an empty array for contracts. What do we get in return? In return, it returns the owner, the wallet address, which we already provided, so we know that, and it returns the array of assets. So the array, and for each item in that array, it has the address of the ERC20 token contract, and it has the amount of that given token, and it gives the chain, which we know is Ethereum, provides the number of decimals, and it provides the name of the token and the symbol of the token, and the network where the contract was deployed. So all that will be available to us, and we can use what we want and need to display in our front end. And once we get that, we use await, because that's going to take some time. So it's an async request and it returns tokens. And once we have the tokens here, we use the set tokens, which we've seen already, to have a state variable with all those tokens and balances. So we are getting closer now. We already have the function to handle the form submit. We have the function to handle reading the token balances from blockchain, and we are already storing all that information in a state variable where we will be able to get it quickly and to display in front end. This means that we have all the ingredients needed to display the balances on the page, and we can start writing the HTML for that. Return, and the magic is happening here. This is what we will be rendering. So to begin with, it will have the form. This is the form from here to here. On submit, we will run the function handle submit, which we will already have. Some magic with Tailwind CSS. Width is 6/12, which is 50% of the screen. Rounded borders, border gray, 3 pixels, some shadows. So we are making the form look not ugly, at least. And this is the input form where we will be entering our wallet address. So on change, on each and every keystroke, it's going to update the address state variable with the value of the form. And once we are ready to submit, we will press this button, which will shout the Web3 version of Jerry Maguire, show me the tokens. So that's our input form that handles taking the wallet address and sending it to the handle submit function. And the handle submit function then does everything to read the token data and to store the data in the state variable, which is already available to us in our app. So now we can display that data. So first things first, I do not want to display the data and to start displaying the table with the token data if we still don't have the tokens available to us. So I don't want to display just the header of the table. So that's why I'm checking if the tokens array is more than 0, if it has more than 0 items. And only when it has more than 0 items with 2 ampersands, the rest of this will be rendered only when there's non-empty tokens array. So once it's non-empty, then we can display the table. The table is quite simple. First, we say that it's the tokens, and then we have the header row, which says the name, the symbol, and the balance. And in the body of the table, we first take the tokens array, and then we map over each and every item. And for every item, we have a token, and we display token name and token symbol. And for the balance, it's a little bit more complicated because we want the number to look more human readable and to make more sense. So we format it again with Ether's library provided utils. We format units, we format token amount with the number of decimals. So it's like 1 Ethereum, for example, has 18 decimals. So instead of showing 1 and 18 zeros, we show 1. But Ethereum is not an ERC20 token, it's just an example. So we are formatting that, showing only when it's not empty, and let's see if it works. This is our app. Beautiful. Enter your address here. This is our form. Show me the tokens is here. Now we need to enter some address. So as a good example, which probably will have many tokens, let's see what is Vitalik's address. Vitalik.eth. this is his resolved address. Let's copy. Vitalik.eth is this address. Let's go ahead and enter Vitalik's wallet address. Right now, nothing below is rendering because the tokens array is empty yet. We didn't read anything from blockchain yet. We didn't set the state variable with token balances. So this is empty for now and not rendering. But now we are submitting the form and show me the tokens. Boom, we have the tokens. It's time to celebrate. Yeah, awesome. But yeah, it's not the end. It's not the end. First, yeah, we are displaying the tokens. We started out saying that we are building a token balance app. So we're halfway there, but we still have a lot to do to make the app much more useful and interesting as well. But yeah, why not celebrate a little bit? Now let's see in a little bit more detail what is happening here. So this is Vitalik's address. So plenty of people, legitimate and scammers as well, are sending stuff to him. So as we can see here, there's loads of spam. Kitty token, OMG token. These are not even hiding it. Useless Ethereum token. So there's a lot of junk. And some of them don't even have a symbol, for example. And some of them also don't even have a name of the token. So let's handle this before going into the next step. So let's display only the tokens that have a symbol. So if, for example, a symbol is empty, we are not displaying that. So for this, we don't need to change anything in the function. We only need to change in the presentation in rendering. So let's see. We are iterating over this tokens array, and we do not want to show this whole row if the symbol is empty. So same as here, tokens length more than 0. We were checking that there's a tokens array, non-empty array. Same, we can do that we can check that token, not name, token symbol is set. And let's see if that works, if it helps with the displays or what we had. It does. As you can see, now all the tokens have the symbol here, no empty symbols. So that's how you filter the data that you don't want. And you can have the token symbol or token name or whatever else. But still there is a problem that there's a load of spam tokens and there's a lot of trash here, and we want our app to be useful. This is where the second parameter comes in handy, the parameter with contracts. So this means that we are providing, as part of our call to blockchain, to the API, we are providing the list of ERC20 tokens, and we only want to get balances for these tokens, and we don't care about anything else. So this list can be very long. I wanted to provide an example here so that we have enough of the tokens, but we don't need to write like tens or like hundreds of contract addresses. So these are the most popular ones: wrapped ETH, USDT, Matic, USDC. And if you're wondering where do you get the token addresses, you can go to Etherscan and you can go to tokens, ERC top tokens, ERC20 top tokens. And here you have all the tokens: USDT, BNB, USDC, and there's a whole list. And you go to each token, and here's the contract here. So USDT is 1EC7. Let's see. Do we have? Yeah, 1EC7. This is USDT. And I compiled the list of the most popular, about 20 or something. And you can get as many as you want. And if you want to know more about how to use Etherscan, I have a video all about Etherscan and how to use it the most effectively. So check out somewhere here. And that's That's going to be a useful tool for you in the future to analyze anything, any transaction, or even see the list of tokens on Etherscan. So now what we are doing is that we are asking only for balances for these tokens, and we don't care about useless Ethereum token, or we don't care about the Kitty token, or we don't want to have the Mooncats. We only want the stable coins or ENS or Shiba Inu, for example, or Uniswap, stuff like that, stuff that matters. So let's save it and let's run it again. Okay, enter your address. Vitalik, what do you have? Boom. And now this is a clean list. This is something that is not scam, Chainlit token, Tether, USD coin, Shiba Inu, Aave, Ethereum name service, ENS, ApeCoin. Now we're talking, and now that is useful, and now we can work with that. Okay, that calls for a mini celebration again. Boom, we have it. Okay, moving on. Looking at this balance app, at least for me, there is an elephant in the room. What's the elephant? The ETH token. There is no ETH token here, and why? Because it's not an ERC20 token. It's a native currency of Ethereum, native cryptocurrency. So that's not an ERC20. It's not on the list, but I want it. I want to display that. Without it, the functionality of the app is not full for me. If I, for example, have a wallet, the main thing that I want to see, one of the main thing is I want to see how much ETH I have, if I can pay for gas, or if I can send transaction to anybody. ERC20 tokens are fine, but without ETH token, that's maybe not useless, but less useful for me. So let's take care of that. It's a little bit out of scope, this app, but I want it. So let's build it. How do we do that? We do it the same way we did fetch tokens. So we call the API. This time it's not the token API. This is the core API that QuickNode provides. And let's write the function for that. The function is called fetch ETH. And what I do again is async. I get the provider, and the provider is, let's do it again here. The provider is this one here. So I paste it here. Okay, we have the provider. Now we are able to connect to blockchain. So let's get the ETH. And to get the ETH is the API method is ETH_get_balance. And we provide the address. And there is an optional second parameter, which is the latest. So the ETH balance of the latest block in the blockchain. Once we read and get the data, we set it in the state variable set ETH, which is not defined yet. So let's go ahead and define it. We do it the same way as we did ETH and set ETH. So we are setting it. Okay, so now we have it ready again to display on our front end. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, before we do that, because we have the function fetch ETH, doesn't mean that it's automatically available, that the ETH variable is automatically available in the front end. What we need to do is we actually need to call that function. I sometimes forget. So we need to call that function, for example, here before we fetch the tokens. Yeah, thank you for telling me that. Fetch ETH. So we are fetching ETH, we are setting it into state variable. Once we have that, we are fetching all the tokens, and then we are ready to display. Now that we have the ETH as well, we want to display it. And as usually, I don't want to display anything if it's not set yet. So let's have the conditional there that we only displaying it if the state variable ETH is non-empty. And where to best display it, here will be the table with the tokens. So I want the ETH. ETH is more important, so let's display it above the table. So below the form, but above the table with all the token balances. So that would be here. We have the form here. So below the form, that's where the form ends, and that's where the tokens start. So let's have ETH here. So we only render this if ETH is set, and we are saying ETH balance is utils format ether ETH. That's it. Quite easy. Let's see how rich Vitalik is in ETH terms. Okay, let's try this again. Boom, not bad. More than 6,000 ETH balance for Vitalik. I wish it was my wallet. It's not, but not bad at all. But now we have already ETH balance. We have all the ERC20 token balances. We're almost there. The last thing that we want to do is we want to display the history of transactions for each and every token from this list here. And so both incoming transactions and outgoing transactions for that token. So for example, how much USDC did Vitalik get and send throughout the history of his wallet. So how this will work? The way that it will work is that I want to be able to click this token, and what will I provide with this token? With this token, I will provide the token contract address. So we already have our wallet address, this one, set in a state variable, so the function will have access to that already. We don't need to provide that, but we also need to provide the smart contract address for the token. And having those two things, we will be able to get the rest, all the history of the token transactions for this wallet. Get wallet token transactions for Ethereum. What does it do? It wants the address, which we have in state variable. It wants the contract, which we will be passing when, as a parameter when clicking on each and every link here. And do we need anything else? No, the rest is optional. So now that we know how to write the function and what we need to do that, let's go ahead and write the function. So all our functions are here. The last one was fetch ETH. We already have that. Now we want to fetch token history. And this is token history. We are providing the token address. Again, we are connecting to the provider. Let's go ahead and do that. Connecting to the provider. And by the way, there are easier ways to do that, but I'm just doing it manually without going with environment variables and everything else. It's a simple app. So once we have the provider, that's how we get the history. We call the get wallet token transactions. We provide the address from here, from this state variable. We provide the token from clicking on this link here, and let's fetch, it will be page 1, and let's fetch last 20 transactions. We don't need more for now for demonstration purposes. Once we get the history of transactions, we set it into the state variable as history transfers. So first of all, let's see what we are setting. So these are the parameters that we are passing into the method, but what we are getting in return. In return, we are getting, first of all, the information about the token. So the token, let's say it's USDC. It has the address. We already provided that, so we don't want that. It has the number of decimals. It has the name, the symbol, and everything else. So we get the data for that. But also we get the array with all the transfers. And for each item in the array, we get all the useful information that we want. So we have the amount that was transferred. We have the date. We have from and to, so who sent and who received. And we have transaction hash, which will be useful for us because I will want to use that to create a link to Etherscan if we want to take a closer look at a specific transaction. So to create a link to Etherscan, we need the transaction hash, which we are getting in response here. Awesome. Coming back to the function, we are setting the new state variable, but we haven't defined it yet, so we need to define it here. History and set history. But there's one more thing here. First, what we are getting in return. In return from the API, we are getting all the information about the token and all the transfers. But what am I setting in the state variable? In the state variable, I'm setting history transfers. So I'm only setting this array with all the transfers, but I am not setting anything about the token. And why is it important? For example, if I want to display the token name when I'm showing the history, so transaction history for USD coin or whatever else, there is no easy way for me to get that if I am not setting that into the state variable. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we will be able to display it in the front end. So let's call it analyzed token, and set analyzed token. And the token is being provided to us here, having the array of data here. So all the data about the token will be in the history token array. And we are setting that as a state variable as well. Okay, so now we have in the state variable ready for us to read and display both the information about the token and all the information about all the incoming and outgoing transfers. So we have absolutely everything we need for displaying the app and for all the functionality that we wanted to build at the beginning. So now let's go ahead and do that. First thing, and it's the way React works. So React doesn't like a href equals nothing, and then like on click you provide the function. It doesn't like to do that. It tells you instead of using an empty link, create a button instead and style it to look like a link, which is what we are going to do here. So where are we showing our name? So this is the name. We are showing it in blue. This is here, and we want for this to be a link. Okay, so we need to replace this with a button that looks like a text link and that is clickable. Okay, boom, and that's it. So this is the long code for that. So that's the button. On click, we are preventing again the default behavior of the browser. The default behavior of the browser is when you click the button, it reloads the page, it goes somewhere, but what it reloads the page. We don't want to reload the page. We want to stay on the page. We just want to run a function and then re-render some part of the page with the data that we get from that function. So once we prevent the default behavior, we run the token history function. So what we're doing here is that we are displaying the token name, which is this, and providing as a parameter the token address. So the token address meaning that it's a contract address for a given token, the one that we got from Etherscan previously. Because we already have the wallet address set up as a state variable, that's all we need. So when we click on that, we should be able to run the function and to get all the data that we need. Let's check that. We click on that. We don't see any error. So the function runs, it gets all the data. Now we only need to display it. Let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, I promised some fun and unexpected stuff in such an app like a token balance app. So let's go ahead and do something fun and unexpected. So because there will be a lot of transactions, and the transactions will be both incoming and outgoing, and we will be displaying a lot of wallet addresses, which are not easy to distinguish at a glance. So there's a lot of letters, a lot of numbers, and sometimes the Vitalik's address, for example, or mine, if I enter my wallet address, will be as a recipient, sometimes as a sender. It's not easy to see at a glance. So what I want to do, I want the app to be more visual, and I want the app to be immediately obvious if it's the sender address, if it's the recipient's address, and the way to see the big picture at a glance. So how do you do that? There's a fun little app. It's called robohash.org, and you generate unique images from any text. In our case, the text is a wallet address, and for each wallet address, it generates a unique robot. For example, this is Vitalik's address. Let's generate, this is him. It doesn't need to be a wallet. It can be any string of numbers, but the important quality of this is that every time you enter this specific string, it's always the same robot. This one is a pink one. So we can use that. We can use that for wallet addresses. So every time we provide this, we will get this image in return, and we will use that in our app, showing next to each address, next to each wallet. And then we'll see how it looks. Okay, so where do we show the data? Let's think. The data here. So we have the form, we have the ETH balance, and we have the token. So when I click on the link, I want the history be displayed here, above the tokens form, above the tokens table, but below ETH balance. So let's put it there. What do we have? We have the tokens here, and we have ETH balance here. So this is where I want to put my history. And let's have a closer look what it is. There's a lot of code, but it's practically the same as displaying the balances of the tokens, but just now we go into more detail and have a little bit more data to play with, but that's the same concept. We are saying the transaction history, and now we have access to actually the token name. But let's first see without the token name. Okay, transaction history at the top, and then quite easy. From, who is the sender, to, who is the recipient, and amount, how much of a given token was sent or received. Okay, so now we have the history array, and now we iterate one by one over all the items, and this is where the magic happens, the robot magic. So we have the robot images, and we feed into that RoboHash API, and as part of the image SRC that we are getting. So https robohash.org, and item from, this is the wallet address of the sender, and that's the unique string that we are sending, and we will be getting the unique robot in return. And the set is the set of images. There are a few sets of images. Some of them are robots, some of them are, I don't remember, maybe an animal or something like that. I like robots the most. So we are setting an image next to the wallet address. So that's the image. Next to the image, we are explicitly saying what the wallet is. That is the sender from whom. And the next one is the same concept. Image source to, so this is the recipient. And we are displaying this as a text as well. Once we have that, we are displaying the amount, and again formatting the amount with ethers utils with format units, amount, and analyze tokens with the decimals. Now let's see if that worked. Let's try another address here. not Vitalik's, a different one in this case. So ETH balance is 0, but it has many other different interesting coins. It has Chainlink, Tether, Wrapped Ether. Let's check Uniswap. Do we see the balance? Boom, we see the balance here. Let's quickly celebrate before looking what's happening here. So we see the from address, we see the to address, and the two addresses are the same, so the robots are the same. The from addresses are different, so the robots are different. So now we can quickly differentiate and see what's going on. Let's look at Tether. Tether again, lots of transfers into the wallet from different robots into the one robot that is the given wallet. And Matic, just one transaction. Okay, so that's already interesting, but because it's a token balance and a token history app, I want to learn a little bit more about the history. So for example, the addresses and amounts are good, but I want to know when that happened. So let's add that data to the mix and let's show the exact date when it happened. And besides the date, what I also want to do is I want to look at the transaction, and if I want to know a little bit more, I want to go into all the details. I want to see the transaction details on Etherscan. So let's create also a link to open the transaction details in Etherscan so that we can investigate further. To add the date, we need to update the table header. Let's add date, and we need to add a couple more fields here with the date and with the Etherscan link. So we have from 2 decimals the amount, and now here we add 2 more things. So this will be the line that will show the date of the transfer, and this one will have a link to Etherscan, which is easy, HTTPS etherscan.io/tx, and then item transaction hash that we also have from the API, and that's how it works with the link to Etherscan, and we open it in a new tab. Okay, let's see if that worked. Reload the app, enter the wallet address. Let's see, Tether USD. Boom, again, a celebration here. That's actually, no, that's a big celebration. That's an awesome celebration. That's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to have the history. We wanted to have the token balances. We even added the ETH balance. So actually, this is what we wanted to do, and we have it. And now we can even look at the dates, and we can see all the details of the transaction on Etherscan. Awesome. Maybe the last thing to do is that let's show transaction history for which token we are showing that, because we do not display that information here. So let's say that transaction history for USDT, or maybe let's call the full name, Chainlink token, for example. We have set this token in a variable, so we have all that information. We need to just display it in the front end. So that's at the beginning, transaction history for, and that's going to be transaction history for analyzed, I think it was analyzed token, and let's call the name. Let's see, transaction history for Chainlink token, awesome. Transaction history for Hex, transaction history for Shiba, and Uniswap as well. Awesome. So now that was the final step. That's it. We have created what we wanted to create. We have an app that shows first of all, shows the balance of all the tokens in the wallet and the symbols. And when clicked on the token name, it provides the history of transaction, with nice visual elements to quickly differentiate if it's a sender or recipient. Here there's a lot of recipients here. So this is the icon of the robot for this particular wallet. So here this is a recipient, here it's a sender, here it's a recipient, here it's a sender. So this is a better representation visually on how you can quickly see the transaction history and how this visual stuff is being helpful. And we have built a thing together. I will post the code in the video description to a repository where you can download it and play with it. And that's step one, and you can take it to another level. You can work on filtering the tokens, you can work on presenting the tokens, you can do all the interesting stuff with transaction history, whatever you want. That's it for today. It was a pleasure building together, and see you soon.